This is Field Notes from The Proving, short reflections from inside the process of building a life that's earned, not perfected, earned. After Mystic, I literally thought I was unstoppable. Not because I said it out loud, but because I believed it. The knee was improving, physical therapy was working, my fitness was coming back, the metrics were improving, and somehow along the way, confidence quietly turned into a little bit of arrogance, I'm not going to lie. And Loudoun County was about to remind me that there is a massive, massive difference. So a few weeks after Mystic, around my birthday, Lewis and I headed to Virginia, just the two of us. We were running the Loudoun County Half Marathon. Now, have you ever been to Loudoun County? It's one of the most beautiful places in the country. It's rolling hills of vineyards and wineries, beautiful quiet roads and small towns. It's almost like Napa Valley somehow got dropped a few hours from the tri-state area. Back when we lived in Arlington, we used to come out here all the time. And every time we do, it feels like this eventual and utter beautiful exhale. It's just stunning. It's so peaceful. And as soon as I would discover, it is also a brutal place to race. So looking back, I wasn't just training for races. I was trying to do everything. I was literally trying to be perfect in all aspects of my life. The perfect employee. I wanted to be the perfect runner, the perfect husband, the perfect son, the perfect friend, the perfect student, every perfect version of myself. At this point, I had these massive goals, as you know. 12 half marathons, 2 marathons, personal records, professional success, certifications, relationships, family, a house, dogs, a demanding career. And somehow I thought I could do all of it. Not just do it, excel at all of it. I called it ambition, but looking back, it was perfectionism wearing ambition costume, quite honestly. And race morning felt immediately different. You park in this massive field, and if you ever parked in a field before sunrise, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Everything is just soaked. The grass is wet. The ground feels soft underneath your tires. You almost wonder if your car is going to sink into the earth, quite honestly. And then you start walking and walking and walking a half mile through the vineyards just to get to the start area. So if you need something from your car, well, congratulations, you just bought yourself another mile. Lewis and I kept looking at each other and thinking, this is, surprisingly rustic. It felt a bit homemade, a little less corporate, maybe a less polished. And I'll admit, I started judging it quietly. I thought I knew what kind of race this is going to be. And turns out, well, that race was about to judge me. So the gun goes off and the first kind of stretch feels easy, almost too easy. A slight downhill, very comfortable, relaxed, kind of exactly what you want. Until you realize Loudoun County is a way of collecting payment later, because this wasn't just another half marathon. This wasn't, can you run a half marathon? This was, can you run a half marathon through wine country? And those are very different questions. Mystic gave me confidence. Loudoun County tested whether I actually did earn that, because not all races are created equal. Some races ask, can you finish? Loudoun County asked, how strong are you really? The hills literally just kept coming up and down, again and again and again. And every climb took something. Every descent punished my legs. Every mile demanded a little bit more. And the cruelest part was that the course was perfectly symmetrical. You run all the way out and then you turn back and you run all the way back. And what I mean by when you run all the way back, I mean, initially that sounds comforting, like you run all the way out and you turn back around. You know exactly where you're going. You know exactly what's ahead, until you realize what exactly that means, that every downhill you celebrate is waiting for you on the way back. I remember hitting the turnaround point and thinking, oh no, because that suddenly changes how the math has been mathing in your head. The hill you were just grateful to run down, now you got to climb it. That section that was easy, now it's work. The momentum you borrowed earlier, well, it's time to pay it back. And standing there in the middle of wine country, watching those rolling hills stretch in the distance, I knew exactly what was coming. But the problem was my legs knew it too. And maybe that's life too. Sometimes we're so grateful for the downhill that we forget that, one day we have to climb again. Sometimes we celebrate, I guess, how easy something feels without realizing we're borrowing from our future selves. So Loudoun County had its way of making sure that every debt got paid. And boy, did it. Somewhere around mile 11, something happened that almost never, ever happens. 2 words that I hate to say. I walked. Now, that might not sound like much, but for me, it was, because I don't walk races. I don't believe in walking races. I believe in showing up, giving everything I have, and running all the way through that finish line. But Loudoun County did not care what I believed. When I tell you my legs were shot, my mind was shot, my confidence was gone, I remember looking ahead at the runners in front of me. And for the first time, I didn't want to beat them. I wanted to be them, because if I were where they were, this race would be almost over. That's how hard it felt. Everything hurt. Everything was screaming. And for a few moments, the only thing I wanted was for it to end. Now, here's the funny thing. I actually still did pretty well. I ran 1 hour, 43 minutes and 11 seconds, a 7:43 pace. Objectively, that's a solid race. I get that, especially on a course like that. But I couldn't see it, because all I could focus on was the walking, the struggle, the fact that I wasn't as invincible as I thought I was. And that's exactly why this race mattered, because Loudoun County wasn't exposing weakness. It was exposing my ego. It was exposing the expectations and the impossible standard that I placed on myself. I guess it was the standard that said every race should be faster, that every month should be better, every goal should be bigger, every version of me should outperform the last. Honestly, life just doesn't work that way, and neither does running. Sometimes the lesson is that it isn't that you're weak. Sometimes the lesson is that you're just human. And after the race, and I think the funny thing about races is that, they do end, and the suffering, the hills, the doubts, the bargaining you do with yourself, around a mile 11, eventually all of it stops. And after Loudoun County, Lewis and I did what we do when we're always there. We found our favorite wineries, sat down, ordered the most beautiful charcuterie board, and enjoyed a glass of Virginia wine. And let me tell you, there's something incredibly satisfying about washing away 13 miles of rolling hills with a great glass of red wine. I remember sitting there looking out over the same hills that absolutely destroyed me a few hours earlier, and somehow they were beautiful again. And maybe that's the lesson too. Sometimes the things that challenge us the most become the stories we love telling later. At the time, those hills felt impossible. A few hours later, they were already becoming a memory, and honestly, a pretty good one. Looking back, Loudoun County wasn't really the race that showed me how strong I was. It was the race that reminded me that I wasn't invincible. And strangely enough, I really needed that. Because when you're chasing perfection, eventually life puts a hill in front of you that's too steep to fake your way through it. And when that happens, the lesson isn't to become stronger. The lesson is to become honest. Honest about your limits, your expectations, honest about what you're asking of yourself. I crossed that finish line exhausted, humbled, and somehow exactly where I needed to be. The work continues.